Welcome, boys. This is going to be a continuation of my previous video, which Corvette is best Corvette, which was a topic requested by Chuck of Panzer Platform. He, after watching the video, had thought he might rather have a C7 Corvette now versus the C6 Corvette, and he wanted additional information on them. Since I am somewhat of a Corvette expert myself, I was happy to oblige him and put together this video. So this is for you, Chuck, and anybody else who stumbles across it. You might be able to learn something as well. So we're going to recap a few things from the previous video before we talk about C7, and we're going to start with C5. So the 5th generation Corvette was from 1997 through 2004. It had 3 different versions of roof you could have for it. It was the same chassis in a sense, in that it was a hydroformed steel chassis, but you could get a fixed roof coupe, a convertible, or target top, which is a removable roof. The removable roof would store in the hatch area, so the back of the car was very teardrop shaped. It had a very large rear window. The convertible and fixed roof coupes would look the same if you were looking at their profile. The difference being one is a top that's soft and folds down for storage, giving you open air access, and then the fixed roof coupe was just that, a fixed roof coupe. It did not move. Couldn't put it down, couldn't take it off. And at first, GM could see that that one was selling the least. They had invested all this money in this tooling for these fixed roof coupes, but nobody was really buying them. And so they needed a way to kind of recoup some of those costs, ensure that their investments weren't wasted. And so when they developed the Z06, that was the 405 horsepower LS6 powered Corvette with the titanium exhaust. It was the lightest Corvette. They gave it the superior handling by making it fixed roof coupe only and a 6-speed manual transmission, the Tremec T56 only. So if you got the 2003 Corvette Z06, you had 405 horsepower, 6-speed manual transmission, fixed roof coupe. There was no negotiating those things. So that allowed GM to recover the cost of their tooling for the fixed roof coupes, and also give the new Z06 owners the more superior driving experience. So everybody wins. Now that carried on into the 6th generation Corvette, which we went over in the last video. Those 3 options were available again: convertible, coupe, fixed roof coupe. Fixed roof coupe exclusively, this time exclusively to Z06, and then later the ZR1. Because do remember, there are a few out in the wild non-Z06 fixed roof coupes. So if you see a C5 fixed roof coupe, you would be more correct often than not if you assumed it's a Z06 just by looking at it. But then when you check the badging on the fender, if there's no Z06, then it's just a base model fixed roof coupe. Now that said, now with the C6, in addition to the fixed roof coupe for the ZR1 and the Z06, those vehicles also got the all aluminum hydroformed frame. The other vehicles, which would be the base model, convertibles, and Targas, still had the steel hydroformed frame, and that also includes the 427 convertible, which is why it is not technically a convertible Z06, though it does have the same power plant as the Z06, the LS7, the 7-liter with the manual transmission. They were still with the steel frame. And that's because they needed the structural rigidity of the tubes essentially going from the top of the windshield back to that bar that surrounds that cockpit area. They needed that tube there, so it had to be a fixed roof coupe. In the aluminum, it needed to be stiffer to reduce body roll and flex, to get the superior handling that those performance cars had. Now, that's what changes when we start the C7. So, the C7, there is no more fixed roof coupe options. No matter which trim option you get, no matter which model you get, you have the option now of target top or convertible. So if you get a base model C7 Stingray, you can have that in Targa, convertible, and they're now all aluminum frames. So it's been completely redesigned for the 7th generation. This time they anticipated having these high horsepower cars, and therefore from the ground up, from inception, they were able to design the chassis to be all aluminum, hydroformed, and not need that reinforcement up above your head like in the fixed roof coupe. Because the goal before was to prevent chassis flex, so you get maximum handling. So now you get superior handling compared to that of the C6. So the C6 fixed roof coupes now have inferior handling compared to the C7s that are completely open roof, with the GM being able to increase the thickness of the aluminum tunnel that surrounds the torque tube, and because that was their only goal. They didn't care about your rollover survivability or anything like that, which would help if you had the fixed roof coupe, of course, in the 7th gen, but that's not an option. They just cared about the chassis flex, and now they were able to stiffen the chassis without needing that stuff up there. So that was the goal. Their mission was accomplished. You can now anybody can have the removable roof. So all the boomers and the AARP members that get their Corvettes, you don't have to hear those guys complaining anymore about, well, I want the power of the Z06, but I can't take my roof out. Well, now you can do both. And in my opinion, that is kind of where the C7 does go off the rails a little, in my opinion, because I did like the exclusivity of the Z06 being manual transmission only. But now your Z06 and ZR1s can be had with either the 7-speed manual transmission or the 6-speed automatic. So no longer, if you get the high performance Z06 or ZR1s, do you have to look up and see your roof and change your own gears, but now you can look up at the sky and the car will change the gears for you. So since now they're all the same, essentially, in this generation, the only exceptions being what trim options are you getting, what performance packages are you getting, what engines are you getting, what transmissions are you getting, which of the two roof options do you want. Those are really the only things now separating them all. The frames, everything's the same. So this would be where I would suggest Chuck would get, and he would be perfectly fine with his base model Stingray C7 with the Z51 package. In this case, if you were to get the Grand Sport, which does have a lot of the C7 Z51 options, you can get those same options that the Grand Sport has, but with just the Z51 package. So you get the transmission cooler, the staggered wheels, 19s on the front, 20s on the back, the bigger brakes, the superior handling. You can get the selectable ride control, again, the magnetic ride. I don't think that comes with the Z51 package, though. I believe that's an option in an option. So I believe that's one of those things, if you get the Z51 package, you can then opt for magnetic ride. But I'm not 100% sure on that. And so base model LT1 engine does get you the 455 horsepower and which is pretty good. Your Grand Sport, it's the same engine, so you're just getting those additional extras as mentioned before. When you start getting more horsepower is when you get the Z06 with its LT4 engine, which now gives you 650 horsepower. So that's more horsepower than the previous generation's ZR1 King of the Hill. And of course, for the 7th generation, the King of the Hill ZR1 does make its return, and its LT5 engine gives you the 750 horsepower, which is complete insanity. But I don't think that's what Chuck is looking for. He seems to be more of a base model Z51 package kind of guy, or possibly even Grand Sport. So I'm going to conclude this video now by saying, if you were asking me which of the C6s he should get, it would be a Grand Sport. And that's for the reasons I mentioned in my previous video. But if you were to ask me about the C7, I think you'd be fine with just the base model. That's the one I would get. If I was to get a C7 Corvette, I wouldn't need the Grand Sport. Not on that generation. I think it looks fine in the base model without all that extra splitter on the front and the body kits on the back and the wing and all those vents and that. You know, I don't think it needs all that. Now with just the LT1 in it, I think you'd be fine. That's what I would get. If I was to get a C7, I would get a blue in color, or maybe a yellow or a red. Be one of those three colors, I think. I'd get one of those three colors. Base model Stingray with the Z51 package, and I think I would probably get the Targa top, but I might consider the convertible just because I haven't had a convertible in a while. It's been a while, and I think the C7 looks pretty good in convertible. It isn't quite disgusting looking. I think they did a good job designing it, whether the top's up or down. Might look ever so slightly better, I think, in the coupe version with the Targa. But, I don't know. I'd probably take either or, honestly. So, alright. Hope you learned something, Chuck. Hopefully this helps. I guess if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. I do know quite a bit about them. But you may also try to find a bunch of local Corvette guys in your area, because those people who show up to Bloomington Gold, they come from everywhere. I see them coming from all the way from Canada, even. Ontario, Canada, as West Coast, East Coast, Texas, everywhere. So I feel like you probably have a bunch of Corvette guys out by you, so if you bump into any of them, where you can find them on social media, maybe go to one of their things and look at all their cars and ask them all questions about them. Alright, hope this helps. Catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching, boys. Peace.